Now, ma'am, step out of the suite now. The order cracked across the cabin as two police officers closed in on Maya Washington, towering over her like she was a criminal instead of a Yale law student, quietly reading in seat 1A. Passengers watched whispering while the flight attendant who caused it all stood smugly behind them, certain she'd finally put Maya in her place. What Brenda didn't know was that the man striding down the jet bridge at that exact moment wasn't just a concerned father, he was the CEO of the entire airline, and the next 60 seconds would end her 25-year career in front of everyone. The murmur of JFK's international terminal was a familiar symphony to Maya Washington. It was a sound she associated with progress, with movement, with the subtle hum of her life accelerating. At 21, she was already a 3L at Yale Law, a distinction that felt both like a heavyweight belt and a target on her back. She navigated the polished floors, her leather-soled Roys, making barely a sound her destination clear. The Aura Airlines first-class flagship lounge. Aura Airlines wasn't just an airline, it was the airline. In a world of cost-cutting and shrinking seats, Aura had doubled down on luxury service and an exclusivity that bordered on arrogant. Its fleet, painted in a striking pearl white with a deep indigo tail fin, was the darling of celebrities, executives, and old money. Maya presented her boarding pass, a crisp 1A, printed on thick cardstock, and her platinum-stamped, impossibly heavy Aura Elite card to the lounge attendant. The attendant, a woman with a plastered-on smile, barely glanced at Ma, her eyes flicking up for just a second. "The first-class lounge is to the left, miss. The main club is that way," she said, pointing dismissively toward the general business lounge. "I know," Maya said, tapping her boarding pass. "1A." The attendant's smile faltered. She looked at the card, then at the name Washington, then back at Mira's face, at her dark skin, her neatly braided hair, and her decidedly non-corporate attire. A comfortable high-end travel set, but not a Powers suit. The attendant scanned the card. A green light flashed. Her professional mask snapped back into place, this time with a hint of confusion. "Of course, Miss Washington. Please enjoy the lounge." Maya walked past, feeling the attendant's eyes on her back. It was a familiar friction, a silent question she was asked to answer a dozen times a day. "Do you really belong here?" Inside the lounge was an oasis of calm. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the busy tarmac. Maya found a secluded armchair, ordered a virgin mojito, and pulled out her tablet, loading up a prose podcast on complex tort reform. She was flying to London to meet her father for a weekend before he keynoted a major aviation conference. It was a rare break, and seat 1A on Aura Flight 715 was her home for the next 7 hours. Across the terminal in a sterile briefing room, lead flight attendant Brenda Johnson was addressing her crew. Brenda, in her early 50s, was Aura royalty, or so she believed. She'd been with the airline for 25 years back, when it was just a scrappy regional carrier. She considered the new luxurious Aura to be her house, and she guarded its standards with the ferocity of a dragon. She was immaculate in her deep indigo uniform, a single string of pearls at her throat, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe regulation, perfect chignon. "All right, listen up," she snapped her voice, cutting through the pre-flight chatter. Her team included Liam, a young, earnest attendant on his first international rotation, and 2 other seasoned veterans. "This is Flight 715 to Heathrow." Brenda continued pacing. "First class is completely sold out. It's a high-value passenger manifest. We have a Sir Ellen Kincaid in 2D, the CEO of Petrol Global. We have the Duchess of Sussex's cousin in 3A. This is not a flight for amateurs, Liam." Liam swallowed, nodding. "Yes, Mom. The standards on my plane are absolute. I am sick," she said, lowering her voice, "of these new money influencers, these children who think first class is their personal TikTok studio. They don't understand the decorum. They think their platinum status, probably paid for by their parents, makes them special. It does not. We are special. We are Aura. We set the tone. Is that clear? Crystal, Brenda?" The other veterans chimed in. "Good," she said, her blue eyes icy. "Let's go board, and Liam try to keep up." The briefing broke, and Brenda led her team onto the pristine Boeing 787 Dreamliner. As she stepped onto the plane, she ran a white-gloved finger over a bulkhead. "Cabin crew, check your stations. I want this galley spotless before the first passenger steps on." She stood at the doorway, her smile as wide and as artificial as the cabin itself, ready to perform the alchemy of judgment she called customer service. She would greet the passengers and in a single glance categorize them. Belongs, doesn't belong. Tolerated. It was a system that had in her mind never failed her. Boarding for Flight 715 began precisely at 4:30 p.m. The first-class suites on Aura's 787 were less seats and more personal apartments enclosed with high walls and a sliding door. Each featured a lie-flat bed, a personal mini-R, and a 24-inch screen. Seat 1A was the most coveted, nestled in the portside bulkhead, offering the most privacy. Maya was one of the first-class passengers to board. She smiled at Brenda, who was standing at the door. "Good afternoon. One is just to the left." Brenda's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She gave Maya a swift, comprehensive up-and-down glance. Young black braids. No designer handbag. "To the left, yes," she said, her tone a half note too bright. Maya settled into her suite, stowing her carry-on in the personal closet. She took out her noise-cancelling headphones, her tablet, and a bottle of water. She was organized, efficient. She wanted to be settled before the cabin filled up. A few minutes later, the passenger for 1B arrived. This was Cynthia Miller, a woman in her 60s, dripping in gold jewelry, with a small yapping dog in a Louis Vuitton carrier. Her face was a mask of expensive tightness. "Oh, wonderful," Cynthia muttered loud enough for Maya to hear as she saw her. She clearly hadn't expected to have a neighbor, let alone one who looked like Mia. Brenda rushed over, her demeanor changing instantly. "Mrs. Miller, welcome back. It is so wonderful to have you with us again. Can I get Mr. Bojangles a water bowl?" "That would be lovely, Brenda." Cynthia coo and a glass of the Dom Perrin, the real Dom, not that sparkling cider you tried to pass off last time. "Only the for you, Mrs. Miller." Brenda laughed, a genuine sycophantic sound. As Brenda turned from Cynthia, she caught Maya's eye. Maya was simply watching an unreadable expression on her face. Brenda's smile hardened. She walked into the galley, her mind made up. "Liam," Brenda whispered, her voice sharp. "Keep an eye on 1A. She's got the flagship seat and she looks like she's never been on a plane before." She seemed nice," Liam offered, polishing a glass. "They always seem nice." "She probably used a buddy pass from a baggage handler. She'll likely ask for 5 blankets and try to steal the silverware. Just watch her." Brenda returned to the cabin to begin her pre-departure checks. She glided past 1A, her smile fixed. "Miss," she said, stopping at Mia's suite. Maya looked up from her tablet. "Yes." "Can I just see your boarding pass again?" Maya frowned. This was unusual. The gate agent had scanned it. The lounge agent had scanned it. "Is there a problem?" "Just a routine security check, miss. We've had some issues with ticketing fraud. I just need to verify your seat." The implication was clear. You are the issue. Cynthia Miller in Fond B perked up, her eyes narrowing with undisguised interest. Slowly, Maya opened her wallet and produced the thick cardstock. "Here you go." Brenda took it not by the edges, but snatching it from her fingers. She stared at it for a long, theatrical moment. "Maya Washington," she said, tasting the name. "And you are traveling alone?" "Yes," Maya said, her voice dropping a few degrees. The polite law student was receding, and the trained litigator was emerging. "Is that also a security concern?" Brenda's lips thinned. "I just need to verify this with the gate agent. It appears this ticket was flagged in our system. This was a complete and total fabrication." But Brenda was building a case. She was creating a narrative not just for herself, but for the passengers around them, planting the seeds of doubt. "This person does not belong." Flagged Maya asked, her heart beginning to pound, not with fear, but with a cold, familiar anger. Flagged for what exactly I'm not at liberty to discuss, that Brenda said, her voice full of false authority. "Please remain in your seat." Brenda turned on her heel and marched away, clutching the boarding pass like it was evidence in a trial. She didn't go to the jet bridge. She went straight to the galley, picked up the interphone, and dialed the captain's extension. "Captain Evans," she said, her voice low and urgent. "This is Brenda in the cabin. We may have a situation in 1A. I have a passenger who I strongly believe is traveling on a fraudulent ticket. She's becoming aggressive." In her seat, Maya watched her go. Cynthia Miller leaned over the divider. "Don't you worry, dear," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "They'll find you a lovely seat back in coach. It's really much more comfortable for your kind." Maya simply met her gaze. "The only thing I'm worried about," she said, her voice steel, "is the lawsuit this airline is about to have." In the galley, Liam was stacking champagne flutes, his hands trembling slightly. He had overheard Brenda's call to the cockpit, and his stomach was in knots. "Brenda," he said, trying to sound casual. "What's going on? That's Washington. Isn't that Brenda?" cut him off with a look that could curdle milk. "Don't be a fool, Liam. Do you really think that she spat, the word is related to him? James Washington is a visionary. He's a class act. He would never." "Well, look at her. She's probably some distant cousin. Or worse, someone who claims to be using a stolen card. The Washington name is probably what flagged the credit card for fraud in the first time. It's too high profile." She was spinning a web of justification so thick she was starting to believe it herself. In her 25 years, she'd seen it all. Scammers, freeloaders, stowaways. This young woman was just the latest. And she, Brenda Johnson, was the last line of defense for the Aura brand. She stepped back into the cabin. The pre-departure service was on hold. The atmosphere in first class, usually one of hushed luxury, was now charged with tension. Siren in 2D was looking over his newspaper with annoyance. The Duchess's cousin in 3A was pretending not to listen, which meant she was hanging on every word. Brenda marched back to 1A. "Miss Washington," she said, her voice now loud enough for the entire cabin to hear. "I've spoken with the captain. This ticket has been voided. We're going to have to ask you to deplane now." Maya stood up slowly. She was tall, and in the confines of the suite, she suddenly seemed to take up all the air. "No." The single word hung in the cabin. "I beg your pardon," Brenda said, her face flushing a deep, angry red. "I said no. This ticket is not voided. It was a gift from my father. It is valid. I am a ticketed confirmed passenger in seat 1A. I have shown you my boarding pass. I have shown you my ID, which matches my boarding pass. You are now engaging in harassment." "Harassment?" Cynthia Miller shrieked from 1B. "Brenda, she's threatening you. I heard her. She threatened a lawsuit. She's clearly unstable." Mark Thompson, a man in 2C who had been watching silently, finally spoke up. He was a tech investor used to seeing disruption. "Excuse me, flight attendant. The lady's ticket scanned just fine. She's not bothering anyone. You're the one holding up the flight. Why don't you just leave her be?" Brenda felt the situation slipping. She was being questioned by another passenger. This was a challenge to her authority. She had to end this. "So this is a security matter," she snapped at Mark. "It does not concern you. Stay out of it, or I will have you removed for interfering with a flight crew." She turned back to Maya, her eyes blazing. "Mom, this is your final warning. Get off this aircraft voluntarily." "And if I don't?" Maya asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "Then I will have you removed," Brenda hissed. "And trust me, you don't want that. It involves airport police, a permanent ban from Aura, and likely a night in a holding cell." "You're calling the police?" Maya asked, incredulous. "You are going to delay an international flight full of passengers because you don't like the color of my skin." "This has nothing to do with your skin," Brenda shrieked. The denial a little too loud, a little too fast. "It has to do with your ticket. You stole it." It was the cardinal sin, the ultimate accusation. And she had said it out loud. In the dead silence that followed, Maya did something Brenda didn't expect. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She smiled. A cold, thin, terrifying smile. "Okay," Maya said. "Do it. Call them." Then she sat back down in her seat, crossed her legs, and picked up her tablet. "You've delayed us long enough. I have reading to do." This more than anything broke Brenda. The sheer, unadulterated audacity, the calm, it was the calm of someone who thought they had the upper hand. Brenda was going to show her, and the entire cabin, who was really in charge. She stormed back to the galley, her face a thundercloud. "Liam!" she yelled, making him jump. "Get on the horn to the captain. Tell him the passenger in 1A is non-compliant and belligerent. Tell him she assaulted me." What, Liam's face went white? "Brenda, she didn't. I was right here. She verbally assaulted me. She's unstable. You don't know what she's capable of." Brenda shoved him aside and grabbed the interphone herself. "Captain Evans," she said, her voice shaking with manufactured fear. "The situation in 1A has deteriorated. The passenger she's out of control. She's threatening me and other passengers. We need airport police immediately. We need her removed." A click came from the cockpit. "Understood, Brenda. I'm calling them now. We're on a ground hold." Brenda hung up the phone. She composed her face into a mask of a victim, a brave soldier just trying to do her job. She stepped back into the cabin. A martyr. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced to the cabin, "I apologize for the delay. We are dealing with a disruptive passenger. For your own safety, we have been forced to call airport security. Please remain in your seats." Every eye in the cabin turned to Maya. She was now the disruptive passenger, the pariah. Maya closed her eyes. She felt the hot sting of humiliation, the familiar weight of injustice. But her father's voice echoed in her head. "Never let them see you break. Stand in your truth, Maya. Stand and let the world bend to you." She pulled out her phone. She opened a text chain. To Dad message. "Problem on flight 715. FA in first is calling the cops on me. She thinks I stole my ticket. Please advise." She hit send. A second later, 3 dots appeared from Dad message. "I'm in the first wing lounge at B21. I'm on my way. Do not move." Maya put her phone on the armrest. Screen up. She took a deep, calming breath. The cavalry was coming. The energy on an airplane shifts when the police board. The hermetically sealed tube, a place of transit and anonymity, suddenly becomes a cage. The mundane hum of the ventilation system is replaced by the crackle of radios and the heavy squeaking tread of utility boots on the carpet. 2 Port Authority police officers appeared in the doorway. The first officer, Riley, was a burly man in his late 40s. His face a non-committal mask that had seen everything JFK could throw at it. The second officer, Chen, was younger, sharper, his eyes darting around, taking in the scene. Brenda rushed to them, her hands fluttering at her chest. The very picture of a distressed victim. "Officers, thank goodness you're here. Thank you. Thank you." "What's the problem?" Mom Officer Riley asked, his voice a low rumble. "It's her," Brenda said, pointing a dramatic trembling finger at Maya in 1A. "This woman, Maya Washington, or whatever her real name is. She boarded with a fraudulent stolen ticket. When I confronted her, she became belligerent aggressive. She threatened me. She threatened Mrs. Miller in 1B. We all feel unsafe. She's delaying the flight and refusing to deplane." Officer Riley sighed. It was the end of his shift. A disruptive passenger call on an international flight was a mountain of paperwork. He and Officer Chen walked down the aisle, standing over Mia's suite. It was designed for privacy, but now it felt like a dock in a courtroom. Mom Officer Riley said, not unkindly, "I'm Officer Riley. We've had a complaint from the flight crew. They need you to deplane. We can sort this all out at the gate." Maya looked up at him. She didn't stand. She remained seated, projecting a calm she did not entirely feel. "Officer, I appreciate you have a job to do, but I am a ticketed passenger. This is my seat. I have done nothing wrong. This flight attendant," she said, gesturing to Brenda, "has been harassing me since the moment I boarded. She accused me of stealing my ticket, and when I refused to be intimidated, she called you. She's lying." "A lie," Cynthia Miller shrieked. "I heard it all. She was threatening. She's a danger." Brenda nodded vigorously. See, I told you she's unstable. Officer Riley looked from Brenda, vibrating with vindictive energy, to Cynthia, a clear busybody, to Maya, who looked like a college student. His cop sense told him this was a Karen situation, 30,000 FT edition. But the rules were the rules. The flight crew had authority on the plane. "Mum, I don't care about the why right now," Riley said, his voice hardening. "The flight crew has given a lawful order for you to deplane. If you refuse, I have to physically remove you. And if I do that, you'll be charged with trespassing and interfering with a flight crew. That's a federal charge. You do not want that young lady. Am I clear?" Mia's heart hammered. A federal charge that would end her law career before it began. This was the true hard karma Brenda wanted. Not just humiliation, but destruction. Officer Maya said, her voice shaking just a fraction. "You are being manipulated. This woman is racially profiling me. Look at me. What danger do I present I am sitting here reading? She is the one causing a disturbance." "That's it," Brenda shouted. She played the race card. I knew she would. That's what they all do when they're caught. "Officers, she's slandering me. Get her out of here." Officer Chen, who had been silent, spoke. "Mom, can I just see your ID, please?" "Gladly," Maya said. She handed him her Yale Law School ID and her Connecticut driver's license. Maya C. Washington. Chen looked at it, then at the boarding pass on her armrest. They match. Of course they match. Brenda fumed. The ID is probably fake too. Or she's using her sister's card. It doesn't matter. I, as the lead flight attendant, have deemed her a security risk, and I want her off my plane. Riley nodded. That was the magic word, security risk. That was the end of the discussion. "All right, Mom," Riley said, unhooking his radio. "Last chance. Walk off, or I carry you off." Maya looked at the faces around her. Brenda smug and victorious, Cynthia smirking, Liam the junior FA pale and terrified in the galley, Mark Thompson filming the entire interaction on his phone. "I am not moving," Maya said, her voice clear. "You will have to arrest me." "So be it," Riley said. He keyed his radio. "Dispatch, send back up to Aura 715 Gate B23. We have a non-compliant hostile passenger. We're going to have to... What in the hell is going on here?" The voice was not a shout. It was a low, powerful baritone that vibrated with absolute authority. It cut through the cabin like a surgical laser. Every head snapped to the front of the plane. A man stood in the open doorway of the jet bridge. He wasn't just a man. He was the man. He was in his late 50s, tall and broad-shouldered. He was wearing a bespoke dark grey Bion suit that probably cost more than Officer Riley's car. He was black, and he was radiating a fury so potent it seemed to suck the air out of the cabin. Flanking him, looking utterly terrified, were two gate agents. Brenda Johnson did not recognize him. She saw a well-dressed black man, probably another one of Mia's family members, coming to make more trouble. "Sir," she snapped, her authority already peaked. "You cannot be on this aircraft. This is a sterile environment. The police are handling a situation. Step back." The man ignored her. His eyes, the exact same shade of deep brown as Maya's, scanned the scene. The two police officers looming over his daughter. His daughter proud, but visibly shaken. The smirking woman in 1B, the passenger filming in 2C. And finally, Brenda, her face contorted in a mask of self-righteousness. He took a step onto the plane. "Maya?" he said, his voice softening just a fraction. "Are you all right?" "I am now, Dad," Maya whispered. Brenda Johnson's entire nervous system shut down. "Dad..." Her brain simply stopped processing information. She looked at the man. She looked at the girl. She looked back at the man. The resemblance which she had been willfully blind to was now overwhelming. The same strong jawline, the same intelligent eyes, the same air of unshakable confidence. But it wasn't just the resemblance. It was his face. She had seen that face in training videos on the cover of the Aura in-flight magazine, in the massive portrait that hung in the lobby of Aura's Chicago headquarters. Brenda's mouth went dry. The blood drained from her face, leaving her a pale, ghostly white under the harsh cabin lights. Her hand, which had been pointing at Ma, dropped limply to her side. Mr. Washington, she stammered. It wasn't a question. It was a plea. James Washington, founder, majority shareholder, and chief executive officer of Airlines, finally turned his gaze to her. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. You, he said, his voice ablaze. You are Miss Johnson, my lead attendant. Yes, sir, Brenda whispered. I didn't know. I had no idea. You had no idea what Miss Johnson, James asked, taking another slow step into the cabin. The police officers, Riley and Chen, instinctively stepped back, clearing a path. They too recognized him. Did you not know she was my daughter? Or did you not know that you don't call the police on a 21-year-old Yale law student in her assigned seat who has done nothing wrong? He stopped right in front of her. Brenda had to crane her neck to look up at him. She was trembling. Sir, it was a security precaution. She pleaded, grasping for the one justification she had the ticket. It seemed suspicious, and she was aggressive. Mrs. Miller in 1B can attest. James Washington turned his head just slightly to look at Cynthia Miller. Cynthia, who had been gleefully watching the drama, now looked as if she had swallowed a rock. She shrank back into her seat, pulling Mr. Bojangles onto her lap as a tiny furry shield. Mrs. Miller? James said, his voice smooth as ice. A loyal customer. I believe your account is flagged for excessive complaints to secure upgrades. Is that correct? And you felt unsafe from a girl half your age reading a book. Cynthia went from white to green. James turned back to Brenda. You have been with this airline for 25 years, Miss Johnson. You were here when we were just 2 planes flying to Detroit. You of all people should know our values. Our only value. Service, respect, integrity. Does any of that sound familiar? Yes, sir. Of course, sir. Brenda sobbed. The tears were real now, tears of terror. So tell me, James said, which of those values were you honoring when you decided to racially profile my daughter? I didn't. I wouldn't, Brenda cried. It wasn't about her race. It was about the standards. The standards, James repeated the word, and it sounded ridiculous. You think this... He gestured around the cabin at the police, at the delayed passengers, at his humiliated daughter, is the standard for Airlines. He walked past her to Mia's seat. He looked at Officer Riley. Officer, I assume you were called here. Yes, sir, Mr. Washington, Riley said. All business. The flight attendant reported a hostile passenger refusing to deplane. And did you find a hostile passenger? James asked. Riley looked at Mia, then at Brenda. We found a disagreement, sir. The flight crew has jurisdiction on the plane. They did, James corrected. Captain Evans, he called toward the cockpit, get out here now. The cockpit door opened, and Captain Evans, a veteran pilot with a silver crew cut, emerged. His face was a map of confusion and annoyance at the ground delay. Then he saw James Washington, and his annoyance turned to professional dread. Mr. Washington, sir, Captain Evans said, snapping to attention. What's going on? We had a report of I know what you had a report of, Captain James said, cutting him off. I want to know why you, the pilot in command, authorized your lead attendant to call the police on a passenger without first coming out here to de-escalate the situation yourself. Sir, Brenda reported a belligerent passenger, a possible fraudulent ticket. A belligerent passenger, James repeated. He looked at Maya. This is Maya Washington, my daughter. She's a 3L at Yale Law, and she's probably the least belligerent person on this entire aircraft. The ticket a gift from me from my personal verified unlimited CEO account, an account Mrs. Johnson has no authority to question. Captain Evans looked at Brenda. The colour in his face was draining too. He'd been played. He'd let his lead FA start a fire, and now the owner was standing in the flames. Brenda, James said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. You called the police on my daughter. You accused her of theft. You delayed a $200 million aircraft, inconvenienced 200 passengers, and cost this company hundreds of thousands of dollars in fuel, landing slot fees, and reputational damage. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mr. Washington. Brenda wept, her professional mask completely gone, revealing the ugly, terrified core beneath. Sorry doesn't fix it, James said. You know we've had our eye on you, Ms. Johnson. Your customer complaint ratio is alarming. You've been flagged 3 times in the last year for escalating minor situations, all with passengers of colour. My diversity and inclusion team has tried to schedule you for mandatory retraining twice. You called in sick both times. Brenda's sobs hitched. She was exposed. This wasn't a single mistake. It was a pattern that had just met its ultimate conclusion. You have become a liability to this brand, Brenda. James said, You are the opposite of aura. He turned to Captain Evans. Captain Ms. Johnson is not well. She is clearly unfit for duty. This was the professional execution. Unfit for duty. Yes, sir, Captain Evans said, nodding. She is to be grounded effective immediately, James commanded. She will hand her airline ID and her cabin keys to you right now. Grounded. Brenda's head snapped up. Sir, please. My 25 years, my pension. Your 25 years of service is the only reason I'm not having you arrested for filing a false police report. James said, his voice like flint. You endangered my daughter. You embarrassed my company. You are done. Give the captain your badge. Brenda looked at him, her eyes wide, with desperate hope, searching for a sign of mercy. There was none. James Washington's face was carved from granite. Slowly, her hands shaking so badly she could barely unsip it. Brenda removed the Brenda Johnson lead attendant 25 years badge from her uniform. She held it out to Captain Evans. Now James said, his voice resonating with finality. Get off my plane. This was the true hard karma. Not just being fired, but the public visceral humiliation. Officer Riley and Officer Chen, who had been watching this corporate execution, now understood their new role. Ma'am? Officer Riley said, his voice back to its neutral rumble. You heard the man. Let's go. Brenda looked at the police officers. The very men she had called to remove Maya were now here to remove her. The irony was so thick it was suffocating. No, please, she whispered. Let's go, ma'am, Riley said, gently but firmly, taking her elbow. Brenda Johnson, the 25-year veteran. The queen of the first-class cabin was escorted off Flight 75 past all the passengers, her sobs echoing in the stunned silence. As she passed Liam, the junior FA couldn't even look at her. He was already busy picking up the champagne flute she had knocked over in her rage. The plane was silent, save for the sound of Brenda's receding sobs down the jet bridge. James Washington stood for a moment, letting the lesson sink in. Then he turned his attention to 1B. Cynthia Miller was trying to make herself invisible. She had her face buried in Mr. Bojangles' fur, pretending to comfort the dog. Mrs. Miller, James said. She flinched. Yes, she squeaked, not looking up. You provided a false statement to a police officer. You corroborated a lie that a passenger was aggressive and dangerous. All to what? Get a little drama. Feel important. I was scared. She lied. You were no such thing. James said you were an accessory to harassment. He looked at the gate agent who was still standing by the door. Miss Torres, get her name and the name of the man in 2C. Mark Thompson, the man who had been filming, gave a "who me" look. James walked over to him. Mr. Thompson, I believe. Thank you for speaking up and thank you for recording. My legal team will be in touch. We'd like a copy of that video for training purposes. Gladly, Mr. Washington Mark said, a small smile playing on his lips. It's good to see a CEO who actually, leads. We do our best, James said. He turned back to Cynthia. Miss Torres, please find Mrs. Miller a seat on the next flight in the last row of coach, after which her Aura Elite status will be permanently revoked. She is banned from this airline for life. You can't do that. Cynthia shrieked, her voice cracking. I'm a platinum member. I have rights. You have no rights on my aircraft except those I grant you, James stated. And you have abused that privilege. You lied. You fanned the flames of a racist confrontation. You don't fly Aura ever again. He turned to the officers. Officers, I believe Mrs. Miller is also unfit to fly. She seems unstable. Perhaps you could escort her to the gate as well." Officer Riley grinned. This he enjoyed. "With pleasure, Mr. Washington. Mom, let's go. Bring the dog." Cynthia Miller, sputtering about her lawyers and influence, was ignominiously hauled out of her first-class suite and marched off the plane right behind the flight attendant whose lies she had supported. The cabin was now 2 passengers lighter. 2 problems lighter. James Washington finally let out a long, slow breath. The fury was receding, replaced by a deep, weary sadness. He turned and addressed the entire first-class cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Aura Airlines, I am profoundly sorry. What you witnessed today was a catastrophic failure of our values. It was a disgusting display of prejudice, and it has no place on this airline or in this world." He looked at Maya, and his eyes filled with a father's pride. "This is my daughter Maya. She deserved a peaceful flight. You all did." He looked at Sir Ellen Quincaid and the Duchess's cousin. "This flight will of course be free. Every passenger on this entire aircraft will have their ticket refunded. Every passenger in this cabin," he said, "will also receive 1 million bonus miles deposited into your account by the time we land. Your inconvenience today was inexcusable, but I hope you'll give us a chance to prove that this is not who we are." He then walked to the galley where Liam was standing, looking like he was about to faint. "Son, what's your name?" James asked, his voice kind. "Liam, sir?" "Liam O'Malley." "Liam O'Malley." "You just got a field promotion," James said. "You are now the lead flight attendant for this flight. Can you handle that?" Liam stood up straight, a new resolve in his eyes. He'd seen the dragon slain. "Yes, sir, I can." "Good. Get these people some champagne. Start with my daughter," James said. He turned back to Maya, who was finally letting the tears of relief and anger well in her eyes. He sat on the edge of her suite and pulled her into a hug. "I'm sorry, baby girl. I'm so sorry you had to go through that." "It's okay, Dad," she mumbled into his suit jacket. "No," he said, pulling back his eyes fierce. "It's not, but we will make it better. I promise you." He stood. "I'm supposed to be on this flight in 1F, but I'm staying. I have a press conference to arrange. I have to get ahead of this." He knew the video from 2C was already on its way to the internet. "Dad, no." Maya said, "Come to London. We had plans." "The plan just changed," he said. "This is more important. We have to own this, Maya. We have to make this right." He kissed her on the forehead. "Captain Evans, get my daughter to London safely." "Yes, sir," the captain said, his voice full of a newfound deep respect. James Washington gave his daughter one last look, nodded to the cabin, and strode off the plane. The jet bridge door closed with a solid final thud. A moment of silence. Then Liam O'Malley's voice, clear and steady, came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your lead flight attendant, Liam. On behalf of Captain Evans and our entire new crew, welcome aboard Aura Flight 7 Tough Dive. We apologize for the delay. We will be airborne momentarily. And Miss Washington," he said, stepping into the cabin with a silver tray, "your pre-departure Dom Perinor." By the time Flight 715 was over the Atlantic, the video was no longer just a viral clip. It was a global news event. Mark Thompson, the passenger in 2C, had uploaded his 4-minute 32-second video from the tarmac using the airport's high-speed Wi-Fi. He titled it "Shocking. Aura Airlines flight attendant racially profiles black woman in first class, calls cops." Then the CEO shows up. He tagged Aura Airlines, CNN, the BBC, and 3 major social media news accounts. The internet did the rest. Within an hour, it had 1 million views. The hashtags were Aura Airlines Assault. Dr. Brenda the Bully and CEO of Karen were trending worldwide. By the time Maya was halfway through her in-flight meal, which Liam served with trembling differential hands, the video had been picked up by every major news outlet. Cable news channels were playing it on a loop, breaking down the footage like it was a presidential debate. The commentary was universally scathing toward Brenda and Cynthia. "Look at the smugness," one commentator on CNN said, freezing the frame on Brenda's face. That is the face of prejudice that has never been checked until tonight. Another on a morning show said, "I think we all just watched the most satisfying firing in corporate history." That CEO. Wow. The video was a perfect self-contained morality play. It had a clear victim, a despicable villain, a sniveling sidekick, and a hero who delivered a get-off-my-plane line that was already being printed on T-shirts. When Maya landed at Heathrow, her phone exploded with so many notifications it overheated and shut down. She wasn't just a passenger, she was a symbol. But the narrative wasn't the one Brenda had intended. The headline screamed, "Yale law student daughter of Airline CEO stands ground against airport Karen." James Washington shows the world how to handle racism. A masterclass in leadership. Get off my plane. The firing heard round the world. James Washington had, as promised, gotten ahead of it. While Maya was in the air, he had convened an emergency press conference in the TWWA hotel at JFK. He didn't send a PR representative. He stood at the podium alone. "Good evening," he began, his voice calm and resonant, silencing the room. "Less than 3 hours ago, an incident occurred on Aura Flight 7 wife. You have seen the video. I will not spin you. I will not give you corporate excuses. What you saw was a catastrophic, inexcusable failure of our values." Today, he said, his eyes scanning the cameras. "One of my employees, a 25-year veteran, failed. She failed her training. She failed her colleagues. And she failed her company. She allowed her own personal, deeply rooted prejudice to override her professional duty. She racially profiled a passenger who, in an unfortunate twist of irony, happened to be my daughter." He held up a hand. "But let me be absolutely clear. My daughter's identity is irrelevant. It is a footnote. It is, in fact, a symptom of a deeper failure, because the only reason this ended well is because the CEO, happened to be there. What if I wasn't? What if she had been any other young black woman? What would have happened to her? She would have been arrested. She would have a federal charge. Her life, her career could have been ruined. The fact that it took my personal intervention to solve this is a failure on my part. A failure of my systems which allowed this cancer to grow. Brenda Johnson is no longer an employee of Aura Airlines. Cynthia Miller is no longer a customer. But this is not a mission accomplished moment. This is a beginning." He then laid it out. "Today, I am announcing the Maya Washington Initiative. It will be a $50 million top-to-bottom overhaul of our NTBS de-escalation and cultural competency training. It will not be an online module you click through. It will be in-person mandatory and led by leading sociologists and civil rights leaders. We will implement a new Aura's Shield policy where any employee can report a bias incident, even against a senior manager, directly to an independent third-party ethics board with full whistleblower protection. We will do better. I promise you, we will be better. I will not lead a company that tolerates this." The press conference was a triumph. Aura's stock, after a 15-minute panic dip, stabilized and then rose 5% by morning. In a world of weak corporate apologies, James Washington's absolute ownership and decisive surgical action was seen as the gold standard of leadership. The hard karma, however, was just beginning for Brenda. She was not just fired, she was globally notorious. She became the face of privileged prejudice. She lawyered up, of course, and filed a massive lawsuit against Aura Airlines for wrongful termination, emotional distress defamation, and reverse discrimination. The case was thrown out in summary judgment. Aura's lawyers simply submitted Mark Thompson's video as Exhibit A along with Brenda's complete HR file, which included the 2 prior documented warnings for escalating situations with minority passengers and her refusal to attend the mandatory diversity training. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Judge Anita Hayes, wrote a dismissal so scathing it too went viral. The plaintiff, she wrote, claims emotional distress from her termination. The court can only imagine the emotional distress of the young woman she tried to have arrested based on no evidence save the plaintiff's own bigotry. The plaintiff claims defamation. It is not defamation if it is true. The plaintiff claims wrongful termination. The only thing wrongful is that she was not terminated sooner. You are lucky, Miss Johnson, that Ms. Washington has not pursued criminal charges against you for filing a false police report and unlawful imprisonment. Case dismissed with prejudice. With prejudice. The end of the line. Brenda lost her pension, her flight benefits, her identity. She tried to tell her side on a right-wing podcast, but she came across as bitter, entitled, and completely unrepentant, which only cemented her pariah status. She had to sell her condo. The last time she was spotted by paparazzi, because she was for a time a D-list celebrity villain. She was working the checkout at a discount supermarket in suburban New Jersey. A customer recognized her and began filming. Hey, the customer said, "Aren't you the racist flight attendant? The one who got owned by her boss? Wow, karma, sir." Well, you know, Brenda fled the register crying as the video was uploaded. Cynthia Miller's karma was quieter, but just as devastating. Her high society friends, who tolerated her abrasive personality because of her husband's money, dropped her instantly. She was no longer just difficult, she was that racist woman from the plane. She was disinvited from charity galas. Her country club membership was under review. Then Aura's legal department sued her. Not for a small sum. They sued her for tortious interference with business operations slander per se and conspiracy to provide false statements to law enforcement. The damages they sought were the entire itemized cost of the delay. $110,000 in fuel. 2 million in passenger compensation for refunding the entire A350, $45,000 in landing slot penalties, and $5 million in brand damage and reputational repair. Her lawyers told her to settle. She settled out of court for an undisclosed but reportedly ruinous sum. She and her husband sold their Hamptons home and moved quietly to Florida. And Maya, she finished her weekend in London. She graduated summa cum laude from Yale Law. She passed the New York bar. She had offers from every white-shoe corporate law firm in Manhattan, all offering staggering signing bonuses. She turned them all down. Instead, she accepted a position as the first ever executive director of the Maya Washington Initiative at Aura Airlines at a salary of $1 per year. She held her first press conference standing beside her father. "My father fixed the problem on the plane," she said, her voice clear and strong, echoing her father's authority, but tempered with her own legal precision. "That was his job. It's my job to fix the problem in the system. That's our job. We will not be defined by our worst moments. We will be defined by how we rise from them." A year later, she was flying from New York to London to audit the new training program at the Heathrow hub. She was in seat 1A. As she settled in a young, bright-eyed flight attendant, a black woman with a warm, genuine smile leaned in. "Miss Washington." The attendant said, her voice low and filled with respect. "Welcome back. My name is Kesha. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm a graduate of the initiative. I'm here because of you." Maya smiled. A real warm smile, not the cold one she had shown Brenda. This was a smile of peace. "It's good to be here, Kesha. Can I get you your usual pre-departure champagne?" "Yes, please," Maya said, opening her laptop. She clicked on a file titled Aura Bias Audit Q4. "And Kesha," Maya added as the attendant turned. "Yes, Miss Washington." "Thank you," Maya said. "Now let's get to work. They say karma isn't real, but what happened on Aura Flight 715 tells a different story. In the real world, karma is simply consequences. Brenda Johnson and Cynthia Miller built their lives on a foundation of prejudice and entitlement. And when they pushed, they hit a wall. A wall built of a father's love and a CEO's power. They didn't just get fired. Their entire world was dismantled by the very rules they tried to weaponize against another. Maya's story is a reminder that standing your ground with dignity and truth is the most powerful weapon. The video of that day became a testament that justice sometimes can be swift, total, and incredibly satisfying. The world saw a racist bully get exactly what she deserved. What do you think? Was this the most satisfying karma you've ever heard of? Do you believe Brenda and Cynthia got what they deserved? Or was it too much? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you loved this story of real-life justice, please do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to see it and subscribe to the channel. We have so many more stories to tell, and you don't want to miss a single.